I was following a TikTok video to learn how to cook when a WeChat message popped up with a photo of a bed. The people in the photo were none other than my dear sister Emily and my husband James, whom I had just married yesterday. Calmly, I plated the dish before opening the new video she had sent. She was laughing arrogantly.
Sister, you must not have slept well last night. Can't even keep your husband on the first day of marriage, TSK, how pitiful.
This wasn't the first time she had done something like this. Since we were kids, she loved taking my things. From a pencil or a new backpack to our family's attention and mom's love, and even men. Over the years, she had perfected her craft. Especially since this time, I had married into a wealthy family. For several days, James didn't come home at all. I knew he was with Emily. Emily's social media was filled with posts every day, showing off flowers, home-cooked meals, and rings. She even tagged me to make sure I saw them. Her caption read, "Where the heart is, that's where home is. In love, the one not loved is the third wheel." The bitterness was palpable. I accidentally liked her post. Mom messaged me privately.
Cancel that like immediately. If your sister sees it, she'll think you're trying to hurt her feelings. You married well, and it's only natural she feels envious. Just let her be. She'll get over it in a few days.
Both of you are my children. You're doing better than your sister now. Be more accommodating. I saw that she was still typing a long message. I sent a quick reply.
Mom, I heard what you said last time.
That effectively ended the conversation. Mom didn't reply again. Emily came to my door, arrogantly commanding.
You need to divorce James immediately.
Standing beside her was her devoted follower, David, his emotions hidden behind a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He gently patted her back, soothing her.
Take your time, no rush.
Emily relished being pursued and flattered. Among all her admirers, David was the most loyal, indulging her without any limits. Even when she was with another man, he would be there to assist her. I held my tea, smiling calmly. Sure, have James bring the divorce papers, and I'll sign them.
What kind of trick did you use? I told him everything about your past, yet he remains indifferent.
I knew what past she was referring to. During my college years, she had latched onto a nouveau riche whose family had come into money through a property deal. For the sake of money, she became his mistress, even resorting to surrogacy to force his hand, convincing him to transfer all his assets to her. Once she succeeded, she used my identity to go to the hospital, terminating the pregnancy and placing all the blame on me. I gently placed my hand on my stomach and said softly, "Maybe it's because I'm expecting. James said it's best if we have a son, considering the family business needs an heir." Emily's eyes flared with anger and disbelief.
Expecting? How could you be expecting?
David crushed the cup in his hand, his dark gaze fixed on me. I ignored him, standing up. Emily, have you always thought you could take men from me because of your irresistible charm? Want to try again? Let's see who ends up with this wealthy husband and this vast estate. The voice-activated light at the staircase was broken. I fumbled in the dark for my keys and opened the door. A hand pulled me in, pressing me against the door, and kissed me fiercely. Victoria calmly plated the dish before opening the new video she had received.
Sister, you must not have slept well last night. Can't even keep your husband on the first day of marriage, TSK, how pitiful.
This wasn't the first time Emily had done something like this. Since they were kids, Emily loved taking Victoria's things. from a pencil or a new backpack to their family's attention and mom's love, and even men. Over the years, she had perfected her craft. Especially since this time, Victoria had married into a wealthy family. For several days, James didn't come home at all. Victoria knew he was with Emily. I served the freshly made meal, smiling gently.
Sophia, tone, cheerful, I just finished cooking. Wash your hands and let's eat.
James's phone kept buzzing with WeChat notifications. He glanced at me guiltily and discreetly put it on silent. But he seemed a bit restless, frequently checking his phone.
Sophia, tone, considerate, is there something wrong at work?
James, tone, dismissive, just a minor issue, nothing serious.
Why did he come back suddenly? Was Emily pushing too hard, and he needed a break? I suppressed the smile at the corner of my mouth. That night, when he tried to get close to me, I shyly avoided him.
Sophia, tone, shy, you forgot. The doctor said I need to recuperate for a while.
James, tone, frustrated, as long as we take precautions, it should be fine.
I pushed him away, firmly saying no. He didn't doubt me because I had always portrayed myself as rigid, dull, and conservative. I took my blanket and went to the guest room. James didn't insist because his phone kept ringing. He watched me leave and seemed relieved. The room had good soundproofing, but I had always had sharp hearing. So I heard him arguing in a low voice.
James, tone, whispering, stop causing trouble. I will never divorce your sister. If you dare to confront her, I won't forgive you.
Emily, tone, defensive, don't threaten me.
James, tone, whispering, if you want to do something drastic, go ahead.
Emily, tone, whispering, I'll come collect you in the morning.
I sat there, munching on sunflower seeds, thoroughly entertained. James would never easily divorce me. Compared to Emily's spoiled and difficult nature, I might be dull, but I was easier to control, making me a more suitable wife. Besides, he had already had his way with Emily, but not with me. The flaws of men, indeed. But Emily being so weak and unable to fight back was unexpected. She always claimed this sister was formidable. Giving up so quickly wouldn't do, it would delay things too much. David called, and I couldn't repeat the mistakes James had made. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and then answered the call.
Did he go back? What are you planning to do?
Was it your idea? I was referring to Emily's incessant calls and tantrums. I kept it brief, but he understood immediately, thanks to our years of mutual understanding.
No.
I figured he wouldn't be that foolish and felt a sense of relief. Looking at myself in the mirror, I twirled my hair around my finger and smiled.
Invite her to stay for a few days.
Isn't it only natural for a sister to stay at her sibling's house? Come on, stay right under my nose. Show me your affection. How thrilling. On the other end, David seemed to breathe a sigh of relief too. He let his lingering emotions seep into his voice.
Victoria, I miss you so much.
If you want to make my life difficult, you can say more things like that.
I hung up the phone. At that moment, James's gentle and clear voice came from the door.
Sophia, why are you in the bathroom for so long? Is your stomach upset?
I washed my hands, looked at the person in the mirror, and put on a foolish yet innocent smile before turning off the faucet and opening the door. Sure enough, Emily arrived with her luggage. She wore a carefully crafted natural makeup look and plopped down on the sofa lazily.
Sis, Mom is going on a business trip, and there's no one to cook for me. I'll be staying here for a few days.
James retreated into the room, and she gave me a provocative smile.
Mom said you heard our conversation?
A few days before the wedding, I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and heard her crying in her room, upset that I had found such a good husband. Mom was softly comforting me, suggesting that perhaps I couldn't handle such immense wealth.
Maybe you should marry into the James family to see if their life is really that good. If there are no risks, I can make my move later.
I always knew Mom was biased. Not just because Emily was her youngest daughter born late in life, but also because she had a difficult delivery with her, almost losing her life. This hard-earned experience created a compensatory psychology, projecting all her love onto Emily. She indulged Emily without any boundaries, even if it meant stepping on me to elevate Emily.
You heard it, and I don't care. You're not even expecting a child. You're just afraid I'll take him away. This is perfect. We start on equal footing and can compete fairly.
I was as startled as if my tail had been stepped on.
Emily, just give up. James is your brother-in-law now. I overlooked your previous antics, but don't cause any serious trouble. The elders are old-fashioned. If you have a child, things will get very complicated.
Her eyes lit up. She acted quickly, and that night, I heard her sneaking into James's room. Initially, there were low voices arguing. James was trying to send her away, and she was pleading with him, her sobs faintly audible. Gradually, the sounds changed. The rustling of clothes, and soon, the harmony of life's intimate moments filled the air. To give them space, I actively applied for business trips. I was away from home 7 or 8 days out of 10. When I was home, Emily, fearing I might win James back, always found legitimate reasons like fixing the computer or asking work-related questions to cling to him. He, afraid of raising suspicion, didn't dare react too strongly. In private, he always urged me to get rid of Emily. I sneered. He enjoyed Emily's youthful body while lamenting her emotional entanglements. Clear as day, he was a scoundrel.
Are you ready to talk now?
I was waiting. Until one morning, Emily suddenly ran to the bathroom to retch while having breakfast. Her face was getting rounder, her waistline expanding. The light in her eyes grew brighter and brighter. Then, on a workday, I suddenly came home to fetch some documents needed for the office. I walked in on Emily and James in bed, making love. I blocked the door, crying uncontrollably.
Honey, it was her. She seduced me.
I swung my arm, trying to push away his hand, but accidentally knocked over the bedside table. The contents of the drawer spilled out, several pregnancy tests and a prenatal checkup report. Emily said nothing, just lay weakly on the bed, crying. Then came the family meeting. I called James's parents and my mom over. At first, John and Mary were scolding James, pulling his ear. But when they heard Emily was pregnant, they froze.
Why don't we let Emily have the baby and give it to James to raise? After all,
Mary glanced at me and swallowed her words.
No way. Emily is a respectable young woman. Having a child out of wedlock is unacceptable. Then Emily should terminate the pregnancy.
no way. The child must not be harmed. This is my grandchild.
Mary's gaze fell on me, and I followed her lead.
James and I will get a divorce.
Emily, forgetting her tears, looked up in delight. With a calm smile, I fiddled with my fingers.
But I have conditions. My condition is that after our separation, James must immediately marry my sister. No matter how unreasonable Emily's actions are, she is still my sister. I still hope she will be well. This is the last thing I can do for her as her sister.
James wanted to protest, but Mary held him tightly, not allowing him to speak. Both sets of parents had their own concerns and feared any delays. So, they chose a date, and the whole family went together to register the marriage. After everyone left, Emily looked up at me and smiled.
Sister, do you know? I hate your hypocritical face the most. You clearly dislike me, but you still act like a saint, taking care of me and forgiving me. Isn't it exhausting to pretend like this?
She proudly waved the marriage certificate in her hand.
In the end, I won. This rich husband, this wealth, it's all mine.
Yes, you won. This abusive man, this mountain of debt, it's all yours.
Emily laughed hysterically, as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world.
What did you say? Have you lost your mind, sister? Do you even know what you're saying?
When David found me, I was praying devoutly at a temple. He drove me back to his place. As soon as we entered, he couldn't wait to kiss me, his breath quickening by my ear. He rested his head on my shoulder, saying pitifully,
I missed you so much. You're so fierce, even saying I missed you gets me scolded so badly.
I couldn't help but smile a little. He lifted his head excitedly, holding my face.
It's finally over! Let's go back to England!
Seeing my silence, his smile faded.
Do you have other plans? She's already expecting James's child, and they've registered their marriage. They're tightly bound together now. Soon enough, she'll discover that James isn't a wealthy man at all. Those property deeds you have are all fake. You turned a gambler and an abuser into a seemingly perfect man.
When this deception is exposed, they'll turn on each other. Isn't that enough?
She owes me a life, I replied calmly. You're crazy. This is a society governed by law. Do you want to break the law?
I have ways to stay within the law.
He grabbed my arm tightly, pleading.
Stop, Victoria. Let it end here. Forget all of this. Let's go back to England and return to our peaceful life.
David, I can't go back. Do you remember that time you talked me down from the 18th floor? It wasn't you who convinced me. It was my unwillingness to give up. If it weren't for the belief in revenge keeping me going, I would be gone by now.
His face changed slightly, as if recalling the time when I was emaciated and lifeless, and he couldn't bear it. I met James through my roommate, Lily, who was his girlfriend. He liked to gamble, and when he lost everything, he would ask Lily for money. Lily, out of love, would beg him repeatedly. When her wallet was empty and she could no longer support him, he started to get violent. With Lily's cooperation, I appeared like a savior when he was cornered and paid off his gambling debts. I pretended not to know about his relationship with Lily, and he took the opportunity to kick her out and start pursuing me. With my deliberate indulgence and support, he became more addicted to gambling. Before our separation, he had maxed out several credit cards, owing millions. Initially, he didn't want to separate, even though Emily was pressuring him with her condition. He didn't want to lose his cash cow, as I transferred my salary to him every month. But the James family didn't know about his debts, they only wanted a grandchild.
I promised him that Emily would receive a large sum of money from me. If he treated her well, she would help him invest, otherwise, he would get nothing. My monthly salary was transferred to Emily. So, he believed I had given Emily a substantial amount of money.
At first, he was gentle and considerate towards Emily. She thought she had married into a wealthy family and was very affectionate. They had a good time together. Later, Emily discovered he wasn't wealthy at all and was deeply in debt. He kept waiting, but Emily never gave him a penny. The money I sent was quickly spent on her living expenses. They started arguing, and their life became chaotic. Gradually, James's true nature was revealed. He became increasingly violent, leaving Emily bruised and battered. She would run home crying repeatedly. Mom would call me, sometimes crying, sometimes blaming me for bringing such a person into Emily's life. But she didn't dare anger me too much, fearing I would stop supporting Emily financially. So, most of the time, she would ask for help, not knowing what to do. One day, Emily furiously called me over.
When did you ever give me $500,000? He keeps getting violent over this. I told him I didn't have it, but he doesn't believe me. Sophia, tell him yourself. When did you give me any money besides the monthly salary?
I glanced at James, hesitating before gently reassuring him. All right, if you say there's nothing, then there's nothing. You're both adults now, talk things out instead of always arguing. Money is a small matter, isn't being together more important? Emily tried to rush over, but James pushed her away.
Haven't you caused enough trouble? Is this never going to end?
Emily clutched her stomach, crying.
I've given you all the money. I'm not lying, I really don't have any more. Why don't you believe me?
Suddenly, she stopped crying and looked at me.
I remember now. On the day of the divorce, you said an abusive man, debts, all of it would be mine.
It was you! Her eyes suddenly became incredibly clear. You did it on purpose. You brought him to me, you deliberately made me attract him, you wanted to ruin me. Her screams were muffled by Mom, who pleaded with Emily.
Don't talk nonsense, Emily. Your sister gives you every penny of her salary. Why would she want to harm you?
Emily frantically shook off Mom's hand, screaming.
I'm not talking nonsense. I'm not lying. It was her. She's trying to destroy me. It's terrifying. To ruin her own sister, she would even gamble with her marriage.
She accused with a contorted face. A worried expression crossed my face. Emily, don't get so agitated. Emily continued to hysterically struggle against Mom's restraint.
Stop pretending to be a good person. I've seen through you completely. You wicked woman, you'll get what's coming to you. You wretch. Do you dare swear you never said those things to me? You wretch. Her eyes were bloodshot, staring at me intently.
Mom, influenced by her emotions, looked at me with questioning eyes. James's suspicious gaze also fell on me.
Emily, I never said that. I swear, if I ever said such a thing, may I be struck by a car or lightning and meet a terrible fate.
I looked at Mom and sighed.
Mom, something's not right with Emily. We should take her to see a doctor.
Out of James and Mom's sight, I gave Emily a mocking smile. She, who had just managed to calm down, lost control again and lunged at me. The scene that day was chaotic. To avoid further provoking her, I suggested leaving them to deal with the mess. A few days later, she came to see me alone one afternoon.
Sophia, you wretch, you want everyone to think I'm crazy, don't you? You clearly said those things, but you won't admit it.
Yes, you heard right. I said it. I did it on purpose. James was a carefully prepared gift for you. Are you enjoying it?
She screamed in agitation.
You finally admit it. You never gave me any money but tricked James into thinking I had it. When I couldn't produce it, he beat me repeatedly. You planned all of this.
Yes, Emily, you're right. You're amazing, okay?
She froze for a moment, gripping her phone tightly. It seemed she hadn't expected me to admit it so bluntly and didn't know how to continue.
And that's not all. Do I look like your timid, quiet sister?
Her eyes widened in shock.
5 years ago, didn't you refuse to let Mom give sister tuition money, not supporting her going to college? You even persuaded your mom to accept the bride price from the lane neighbor planning to marry sister off. She ran away from home afterward, didn't she?
Her pupils contracted in fear, and she trembled all over.
Actually, I am your sister's vengeful spirit, here to seek justice for her.
She grabbed her phone and stormed out. I leaned back into the leather chair, chuckling softly. Emily had reported me to the police, accusing me of a serious crime. So, Emily, Karen, and I all ended up at the police station for questioning.
Mom, she's not sister. Sister must have been harmed by her. She's a demon, a monster.
Emily, what are you talking about? Mom doesn't understand.
Really, Mom, believe me, I have evidence.
She shakily took out a recording.
Sophia, you wretch, you want everyone to think I'm crazy, don't you? You clearly said those things but refused to admit it.
Yes, you heard right, I said it.
You finally admit it. You never gave me money but lied to James that I had it. When I couldn't produce it, he beat me repeatedly. You planned all this, didn't you?
Yes, Emily, you're right. You're amazing, okay? Don't get agitated. Let's go see a doctor, all right? Listen to me, everything will be fine after we see a doctor.
Emily couldn't believe it and played the recording again, mumbling.
How could this be? How is this possible?
Mom, Emily's condition is really getting worse. If we don't take her to the hospital soon, it will be too late.
The police checked my ID and household registration, confirming that I was indeed Sophia. They sternly lectured us.
If a family member has mental issues, you as relatives need to take care of them. How can you let her report to the police so casually? Fill out the statements and take her home. Be more careful in the future.
Karen asked me to make an appointment with the county hospital's psychiatric department. Emily resisted fiercely, refusing to go. Recently, James had been on the run from loan sharks. It had been many days since he last came home. The house was vandalized with foul substances and covered in slogans demanding repayment of debts. Karen had no choice but to bring Emily back home. I was there too. Emily's gaze towards me had turned dark and fearful. During the day, she almost avoided me entirely. But at night, she sneaked into my room and grabbed my throat.
I know it's all you're doing. If you were gone, everything would be fine. Her fingers tightened around my neck. Who are you, really? No, it doesn't matter. You're about to be gone, and I'll be the one to do it.
A small red light blinked continuously in the room, recording everything. My phone vibrated silently beneath me. Before long, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital, the white walls spotless. The pungent smell of disinfectant filled the air. Karen held my hand tightly.
You're awake, thank goodness. The police have taken Emily away. Come on, let's go withdraw the charges.
She tried to pull me out of bed, not caring that I still had an 4 drip in my hand. The needle shifted, leaving a scratch. I pulled out the 4 and pressed on the wound, smiling coldly at her.
Emily tried to end my life.
No, she just hasn't been well lately. She didn't mean it. As her family, we need to take care of her. How can we blame her? She's already been through so much.
What if I had been gone?
But you didn't, Sophia.
David burst into the room, panting, and stood at the door, staring at me. Karen picked up the lunchbox from the table and said she was going to get food, then walked out. As she passed David, she paused and whispered,
Talk to her. Emily is still in custody.
She sighed and left. David came to me, his voice low and resigned.
You've always been strong-willed. I can't change your mind once you've decided on something. I can't stop you anymore, can I?
In the quiet room, I faced David, my resolve unwavering.
Yes.
Then he half knelt, holding my hand gently. I beg you, can you? When you're doing these things, think of me. If I don't matter, think of Aunt in heaven. Would you want to see revenge become the theme of your life? Today, if the police had been 1 second later, you wouldn't be here.
I was silent. It wasn't that I hadn't hesitated, it wasn't that easy to let go. But the hatred in my heart was too strong. This hatred kept me awake at night, and only planning revenge could ease the pain in my heart a little. I am not Sophia, I am Victoria, the daughter of the wealthy man Emily seduced. My dad was just an ordinary fruit vendor. Because of a family relocation, Emily targeted him, pretending to be Sophia and using a pregnancy to deceive him, leading to a divorce and taking all the relocation money. When my dad wanted to marry her, she had already taken all the money and no longer needed to play along with the old man. So she revealed her true colors, mocking and insulting my dad. If it had ended there, it would have been bearable. He was greedy for beauty and deserved to be deceived, it was karma. But Emily's arrogance knew no bounds. She felt it wasn't enough without an audience, so she insulted my mom under the guise of Sophia, causing my mom to have a heart attack. She left as my mom lay gasping on the ground. By the time a kind person took my mom to the hospital, it was too late. I was studying abroad and only learned of my mom's passing through neighborhood gossip, which led me to investigate. Initially, I traced it back to Sophia. But she was so delicate and pitiable, even her voice was soft. She was oppressed by her own mother and sister. So I knew it wasn't her.
I just want to escape my original family. What about you?
I wanted revenge. We hit it off and decided I would take her place and return to the family.
Are you sure about this plan?
I made a lot of preparations for revenge. I had surgery to look like Sophia, taught myself hacking skills, and repeatedly checked the plan, preparing for every possible contingency based on Emily's personality. To prevent being exposed, I asked Sophia to tell me everything from big to small.
Don't worry, they never cared about me.
My portrayal of Sophia wasn't very convincing, but Karen and Emily never loved Sophia. They didn't care about her, nor did they pay attention to what she liked or her personality. So, no one ever suspected me. All the plans and contingencies I prepared for being exposed were unnecessary. I knew my method was clumsy. I racked my brain and could only think of this mutually destructive way. But there was no other choice. If I didn't do it, I would be in a worse situation than now.
You need to look forward.
But unless I saw Emily face the consequences, I couldn't move on. Attempted murder carries a sentence of 3 to 10 years in prison. Too little. I held David's hand. I'm sorry.
It's not that the police came late. They came early. In your plan, you wanted to make sure she was convicted of murder, didn't you?
I wanted to argue, but no words came out.
Fine, if you must have an outcome. Then let me handle it. You go back to the UK, and the outcome will satisfy you.
But my unease only grew. What terrified me more was that I couldn't reach him anymore. He wouldn't answer my calls, and I couldn't catch him at his place. David had always been a rational person. He wouldn't do something like this. I kept trying to reassure myself, but the heavy weight in my heart only pressed deeper. He had always been good to me. In truth, I had always been a rather indifferent person. My dad was irresponsible and rarely involved in my life. It was Mom who raised me single-handedly. Watching their marriage, I had very low expectations and trust in love. I even believed that there was no such thing as a completely loyal partner. We ended up together because his persistence moved me. In our daily interactions, he always accommodated me. I would throw little tantrums whenever I wanted because I had no reservations. I was always ready to end the relationship at any moment. It was he who pulled me back time and again, who retreated and let the small moments of daily life seep into my existence. He stubbornly managed to carve a small crack in my frozen heart, letting in a bit of sunlight. I once thought, this is fine. Marrying him wouldn't be so bad. Even if things changed in the future and he fell out of love with my personality, I wouldn't suffer. I could still have some beautiful memories. Then Mom had an incident. I started planning my revenge and broke up with him immediately because, in my heart, he was never the most important person, not even a very important one. He had pried open my heart and walked in, but he always remained in a place where I could abandon him at any time, unable to move forward. But I didn't expect him to follow me. And he found a place for himself beside Emily. It wasn't without impact. During those days, I felt heartache and pity for him. Someone as clumsy and unfeeling as me, what could possibly make him stay? Even I didn't love myself, yet he stood before me, heart in hand, as if saying, "Look, I love you so much. Can you love me too, just a little?" My thoughts didn't linger on him for long. I had too many things to do. Constantly guarding against Emily, keeping James on a string, coaxing him into marrying me, and then finding ways to avoid him actually touching me. Unexpected situations arose constantly, demanding immediate solutions. Every night, I would ponder over my plans, searching for any flaws. Occasionally, thoughts of him would surface, only to be ruthlessly suppressed. The pain in my heart was unbearable. He finally forced me to acknowledge his existence in his own way. But this way was too extreme. Was I really going to drag him into this bottomless abyss, watching him destroy himself? Suddenly, I was terrified. Beneath the fear, there was a strange warmth, like emotions long suppressed finally finding an outlet. A week later, I finally managed to catch him at his home. Sitting on the sofa, he was about to speak when I hurriedly interrupted.
Let me go first. I've made up my mind. Let's go back to England together. Once things here are settled, we'll leave together. So, you haven't done anything yet, right?
I looked into his eyes carefully, afraid of a negative answer.
Not yet.
Joy burst from his eyes, and he almost stood up in excitement, stammering.
Why did you suddenly change your mind? I had gone back to my hometown, and I thought...
A warm current surged in my heart. What a fool he was. How could there be someone so foolish in this world? The day Emily was sentenced was a beautiful day, with clear blue skies and spotless white clouds.
3 years in prison. The sentence wasn't long, but it was no longer my main concern.
I held his arm as we boarded a plane to leave the country on the same day.
My name is David. I have loved Victoria since the first moment I saw her, almost without reason.
David, you've always been so good to me. Why?
I spent 4 years in college trying to become a part of your life, but I knew you didn't love me that much. Maybe just a little bit of affection, combined with a reluctance to change your current situation.
I'm sorry, David. I never meant to lead you on.
That's why you allowed me to stay by your side. You have always been a very independent girl, very clear about what you want. But I thought, it's okay. Even if it's a stone, if I hold it in my arms, it will eventually warm up.
Later, I followed her back to her hometown, watching her immerse herself completely in seeking retribution. I felt both pain and helplessness. I didn't know how to help her, nor could I stop her.
When she was hospitalized, I admitted that I had lost all my principles. So I thought, if she needed an outcome, then perhaps I should be the one to give it to her. I admit I used a little trick.
What do you mean, David?
During the week, I went home to settle some matters. I could have kept my phone on, could have let you contact me. But I really wanted to test it. I was willing to risk everything, to bet my life on it. But after 7 years of being together, I was curious about what place I held in your heart.
And?
So I allowed myself this one act of willfulness. One move to win the entire game. I finally knew that you did not love me. You just suppressed it so deeply that even you couldn't realize it. You have always been such a kind and pure angel. You chose me. You came back to England with me.
But I knew she hadn't let go. She would unconsciously follow domestic news, linger on the social media of people related to the Sue family. Her occasional absent-mindedness, her irritation when her father called, all indicated that the matter hadn't passed, it was just deeply buried in her heart.
I can't help but remember, David.
Sometimes, I would see her sitting by the window, biting her finger, with a fierce expression. But she never mentioned wanting to return to China. Because now, besides me, she also had our baby to consider.
A year ago, we got married in England, and now she was expecting.
Until one day, I casually placed a newspaper on the dining table. The newspaper reported that Emily, who had just been released from prison, was kidnapped by a gang of debt collectors to use as a hostage to lure James out. During the rescue, the gang was surrounded by the police, and Emily was accidentally harmed.
After reading it, she had tears in her eyes. She leaned against me. David, why after 3 years? Are the debt collectors still after Emily?
I didn't mention how a domestic newspaper had found its way to us abroad. Because we both knew. It was all over.
The following spring, we had a chubby little boy, starting a new chapter in our lives.